If there's one thing you should know about Morgan Freeman, it's this. He has no patience for people who try to put words in his mouth just because of his race. Freeman has built a legendary career as one of the most respected voices in Hollywood, but that doesn't mean he signed up to be anyone's political spokesperson or social commentator. He's Morgan Freeman, not your community activist, not your professor, and certainly not your personal therapist. Unfortunately, someone seemed to forget that when he appeared on The View. Instead of treating him with the level of respect he deserves, they managed to turn the whole thing into what felt like a cheap setup. To start with, they only gave him 5 minutes on air. 5 minutes. That's barely enough time to warm up a cup of coffee, let alone talk about his brand new documentary. And if that wasn't bad enough, rather than focusing on his work, which should have been the entire point of having him on, they tried to drag him in politics, asking questions that had little to do with why he was even there. It came across as careless and even disrespectful, almost like inviting one of the greatest storytellers of all time into your home, and then ignoring his craft to ask him about something completely unrelated. The result? An awkward exchange that did nothing for him and left the audience cringing. But don't just take my word for it. Watch the clip for yourself. Pay attention to how it unfolds and see exactly why so many people walked away shaking their heads.
If I remember correctly, 6 extinction-level events on the planet since life began. I mean, 6 times. Large portions of life. Not human life we're talking. We're talking just life. Gone, destroyed. We're headed for another one. Scientists have said if we don't hurry up and change our ways, there's going to be a cataclysmic event that will wipe many of us off the face.
The folks over at The View are really taking a risk here, and frankly, it's not a smart one. If there's one person you don't want to play games with on live TV, it's Morgan Freeman. This is a man whose voice alone can make a simple scene of penguins marching across the snow feel like the most dramatic moment in a Shakespeare play. He's earned a lifetime of respect through his work, yet instead of celebrating that, the panel chose to poke at him while he was there for one simple reason: to promote his latest project, Life on Our Planet. Now, let's be fair. The topic of that documentary, the future of the environment, and the follow-up conversation on Black history can both lead straight into politics if you're not careful. Climate change and race relations are 2 of the hottest button issues in the country right now. But the way the panel handled it felt less like an honest conversation and more like they were trying to bait him into controversial soundbites, aka the climate discussion. The way it was framed, you would think we're all just a few months away from the apocalypse. The panel leaned hard into that end-of-the-world, messaging, extinction-level events, looming catastrophe, the works. But here's the reality. Those kinds of planet-destroying cataclysms happen once every tens of millions of years. The dinosaurs didn't stand a chance, sure. But your car, your light bulbs, or even your lifestyle choices aren't going to trigger the next asteroid strike. That doesn't mean climate change isn't real. It is, and it's serious. Human-driven changes to the planet have been happening for about 200 years, ever since the Industrial Revolution kicked into high gear. And yes, scientists agree the Earth is warming. Even the more extreme estimates suggest a rise of 2 to 4 degrees Celsius in the coming decades. That's a big deal. It matters. But it's not exactly the same thing as grab your bags, the sky is falling. What makes conversations like the one on The View frustrating is how quickly they slip into guilt trips and doom and gloom. Instead of focusing on solutions, modern environmentalism often gets framed as this anti-human, anti-progress philosophy. It paints mankind as the villain, as if humanity itself is some comic book monster that needs to be stopped. Watching the panel, you couldn't help but feel that vibe creeping in. The message wasn't balanced, it wasn't encouraging, and it definitely wasn't the respectful stage Morgan Freeman deserved.
Because life is tenacious. Life. We're not talking about human beings here. We're talking about the planet.
Yeah.
She'll stay.
Yeah.
Well, it's tenacious if we would just leave it alone. Leave it alone. And the human interruption of all of that is what's causing all the problems. I hope that it's not.
And this is exactly where things went off the rails. The second you start treating the planet itself as the main character of the story, you end up pushing people into the role of the villain. Suddenly, human beings are the bad guys, responsible for everything that's wrong, twirling their imaginary mustaches like cartoon criminals. That's the exact kind of narrative Joy Behar leaned into, straight out of the far-left environmentalist playbook. And you could practically see Morgan Freeman's face drop. This was not the direction he wanted to go in, and it certainly wasn't the message behind his documentary. Let's put some perspective on this. More than 99% of all species that have ever existed are already extinct. Dinosaurs?
Gone.
Trilobites?
Gone.
Those massive ground sloths that once roamed the earth? Also gone. Life has always appeared and disappeared like some massive, ongoing game of cosmic musical chairs. But the planet itself? Earth is unbelievably resilient. It's been through ice ages, asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, and more. If this world could survive the fashion disasters of the 1980s, it can survive us too. And believe it or not, there are actually groups online pushing something called voluntary human extinction. The idea is that if all of us simply stop having kids, the planet could heal itself and carry on without us. In other words, they want humanity to step aside so Earth can have some peace and quiet. It's the environmental equivalent of breaking up with someone and saying, "It's not you, it's literally everyone." This is what happens when a perfectly reasonable idea, taking care of our planet, gets twisted into something so extreme that it loses all common sense. That kind of ideology collapses under its own weight. And Morgan Freeman? He clearly wants no association with that kind of thinking. Honestly, neither do I. Of course, we should care about the environment. Of course, we should work to protect it. But the goal shouldn't be to wipe ourselves out in the process. I'd like to save the Earth, yes, but I'd also like to be here to enjoy it afterward.
About a different document.
Go ahead.
As some politicians around the country try to erase Black history, you're making sure people don't forget vital parts of our past.
Yeah.
Including this documentary that you executive produced called 761st. Did I get that right? Yeah, 761st Tank Battalion, the original Black Panthers.
Yeah.
About the first Black battalion to fight in World War II.
First Black Armored Battalion.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it really comes down to something simple. You can't force someone into a victim role if they've already decided they're not going to live that way. And that's exactly what makes Morgan Freeman so refreshing. He carries himself with this quiet, steady confidence, the kind of confidence that says, "I know who I am, and I'm not here to carry labels or baggage that don't belong to me." That's what separates him from so many public figures who let themselves get boxed in by other people's narratives. Freeman doesn't play that game. He doesn't whine, he doesn't posture. He doesn't try to weaponize identity for attention. He just calmly stands his ground, and in doing so, he makes an even stronger statement. And if you think I'm exaggerating here, go back and watch his famous 60 Minutes interview. In just a few short exchanges, he dismantled the entire victimhood script without raising his voice, without a hint of anger. Just pure, straightforward common sense. It's a perfect example of how you don't need to shout to make a point. And of course, delivered in that unmistakable Morgan Freeman voice, it carried even more weight. Honestly, he could probably convince half the country to refinance their mortgage with nothing more than a pause and a thoughtful look. That's the brilliance of Morgan Freeman. Calm, clarity, and a refusal to let anyone else write his story for him.
And start in the 40s and move up. And how many times did I see Black people in the movies? And if I did see them, what were they doing?
Yeah. There were servants. They were always. I know it's appalling.
I can give you the name.
If you watch old movies, Betty Davis movies are particularly, even though she's great, and
It's the period
it's not her
of time
fault.
that
It's
the
the
movies were
period.
made. Yeah.
It's
It's just
upsetting
what they
to
were
watch.
doing.
Tell you the
Well,
truth.
it shouldn't be that way
It
because
is.
somebody did make money.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And there it was. That's the time.
And really, who on that panel could possibly argue with him? The man has lived through it all. Born in 1937, now well into his 80s, Morgan Freeman has watched America change in ways most of us can only read about in history books. He's seen the good, the bad, and everything in between. That kind of perspective can't be Googled, it can't be faked, and it can't be taught in a classroom. It's earned over a lifetime. And that's why, when he speaks, people lean in. His words carry a weight that goes far beyond talking points. One of the things Freeman understands so well is the relationship between art and culture. Art reflects the world around it, and culture is always in motion. What feels groundbreaking or even controversial today might look outdated or ordinary tomorrow. That's part of the natural cycle. It's what keeps art alive and meaningful across generations. And that's why dragging the past into the court of modern-day morality is such a mistake. Judging artists of yesterday by the standards of today doesn't honor their work. It cheapens it. It disrespects the struggles and the breakthroughs of the people who built the foundation for where we are now. You don't pay tribute to history by rewriting it with the outrage of the moment or by slapping a hashtag on it. I'd bet anything Morgan Freeman feels the same way about his own legacy. When the history books are written, and they will be, he doesn't want to be remembered through some narrow filter of political fashion. He'd want to be seen in the fullness of his time, as a man who contributed to art and culture in ways that transcended the noise of the day. That's the kind of respect he's earned, and that's the kind of respect he should get.